All right. One sec, let me get prepped. Sure. Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Ginger. I'm a PhD student in the program in GSLIS here. I'm a scholar of community and social informatics, and I'm interested in digital literacy and public libraries. And I'm going to tell you today how to make one of these. Make sure you're watching. Hopefully. We tested it. Intellectual life. All right, to be digitally literate is to have access to a broad range of practices and cultural resources that you are able to apply to digital tools. It is the ability to make and share meaning in different modes, formats, to create, collaborate, communicate effectively, and understand how and when digital technology should be used. I got through that faster than I thought I was gonna. All right. So here's the breakdown. The problem is that schools are not that great at teaching digital literacy, especially to younger kids. There's been a lot of research. We actually just saw a great presentation on it. Scholars have come up with abstract measures. We've talked a lot about it, but not as many applications. So my question is, what can public libraries do? And my answer is stuffed animals and YouTube. So I developed a series of workshops to do for stop motion. They're for young kids. They're 3-part workshops. You involve parents and librarians as well. It's about storytelling. It's a 3 to 6 day workshop. You can split it up in many different kinds of ways. Any public library will do. Why? Well, to help foster digital literacies, as I explained. And how do you do it? Using brainstorming and computers and a whole bunch of stuff. This recipe is actually some of that stuff. What do you need? Well, you need groups of kids, groups of 3, plus guides, 1 guide per group, plus 1 overall leader. You need a public library, you need characters. I like stuffed animals, action figures, clay, those kinds of things can work too. Computers, 1 for presenting, cameras, music, classroom supplies like note cards and markers, and a bag of tricks that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So what are we doing? The first step is the actual workshop is designing your story. So we talk about what goes into a story with kids, right? So you have characters, and the kids actually take some time to pick out the different characters. In a second, we're going to have a picture. Come on. Well, the kids have to pick out and name their characters. So they usually have like a pile of characters like this. And they can pick them out. They write down the name of each character on a note card. Then they come up with lists of plot ideas. So this could be like run, jump. It could be things like mystery, a little more abstract, all sorts of different plot snippets. And they write those down. And then they actually come up and decide with settings. And here we can see some of the process of what this looked like. Those are pictures from 2 of the ones we've run. Settings, they run around the library. They check out the library. They experience it in new different ways. It's sort of playful. It's fun. And as they're doing this, they're writing down the different settings on these note cards, like 1 big note card a setting. And they're also coming up with better, more refined plot ideas, because they can be like, okay, the monkey's going to jump off this bookshelf and land on the penguin or something. And so that's where they can actually come up with their narratives. So with these note cards, they actually do really basic storyboarding. They take those together, they put them out on the floor, rearrange them, have different orders, different ways of putting this together, and come up with one coherent, hopefully coherent, story that they can then share with each other. And this is an important part of it, is learning how to express those stories to the other kids that they've come up with. And so usually that takes maybe 1 or 2 sessions to do that. The second step, we do taking of pictures. Any old sort of digital camera will work. They've become pretty ubiquitous. Oftentimes volunteers bring them in. The library sometimes might have them. Cell phones are working better for this. The idea is to help kids learn how to actually use the cameras. And specifically with using the cameras, I like to do introductions like this, where we can talk about the different ways of doing shots, how to do a long shot, how to sort of do the rule of thirds. You can get 2 characters in 1 shot, how to establish the different feelings and frames and accomplish the different kinds of effects in these different shots that you might want to give. And this is rudimentary, but a lot of these kids haven't thought really consciously about this kind of thing. And so they run around with these cameras, and they actually have to take these pictures. They run around with the library. Usually their stories are way bigger than they can actually do, so you end up doing like 1 or 2 scenes. And you'll have 1 kid taking pictures with the camera, 1 moving the stuffed animal around, and another helping to direct. And they switch up those roles as they go throughout, and it's really important to make sure that they experience all kinds of roles. And that bag of tricks I was talking about before, they can bring in fishing wire and pins and all sorts of tape and sorts of things that they can use to make the stuffed animals move around in ways you wouldn't expect. You can accomplish animation through doing stop motion, because you can have a character jump and you won't see the person's moving it in between each frame. And so you can do some really unusual things you'd never be able to do with regular types of video. And so I found this is a really great and explorative process. Here we have a couple of kids there. I don't know if you can actually see it, but the fishing wire, they have to learn how to hold the camera steady. That's always the really hardest thing. And they will then move these characters throughout and come up with a whole bunch of pictures doing way more than they need. They need to organize their assets. This is part of that transmedia navigation thing. So they've got the story in many mediums, and they're carrying it from each medium to another medium. They have to organize in doing that. And so they have to actually order their pictures together in a directory and then gather things like music. Now, music brings me to talking about things like copyright. A lot of the time, kids don't learn what copyright is. I've not run into a 5th grader yet that knows what copyright is. So we talk about copyright and Creative Commons and sharing, and mostly I drive home attribution. If you're going to borrow stuff, you're going to use other things, attribute to whoever it's from. And then also don't use the whole thing. We usually only use parts of songs and that kind of thing when we're putting together these works. And we miss the pictures of the programs. Anyway, iMovie and Windows Movie Maker are the two programs. You sort of arrange the clips in order, and you have to come up with this composition. You can see kids working on this. The parents are usually learning as much as the kids are at this stage, by the way, and I found this is one of the secondary ways, is you pretend like you're teaching kids, but you're really teaching kids and parents and librarians maybe too. So ultimately, these kids put together stories, and they're learning that they get to be the message out on the internet. This goes up on YouTube. It's just pictures of stuffed animals, so there's no danger of children being... Oh, that's her phone. Okay, no danger of getting in trouble. And they learn that they get to be the one on YouTube. They are who is out there, and that's really empowering. This is a chance for them to learn the backside of this kind of production that many of them don't experience in school in any kind of form. So if you want to learn how to do this, I have a step-by-step, redonkulously complicated guide. It is at this URL. You can go check that out. And this is hopefully a springboard to helping kids learn to create more critical stories later. This is about a stuffed animal. It's fictitious. But the next step down the line is to help the kid critically think about their own awareness, their own life, where they're going, and critically assess the stories that they tell. Okay.